During this mini lecture, we will be discussing different reading strategies that can help children better understand the scientific text they are reading. Often when students open a textbook to read or listen to a passage read aloud, they disengage with the content being communicated. This disengagement is referred to as passive learning. As a result, students who engage in passive learning often fail to retain the information described. This leads us to our question as educators. How can we shift student thinking and learning to a more active state when researching scientific texts? Students struggle with comprehending scientific texts for the following reasons. Number 1, they are unable to identify the scientific phenomenon. Number 2, they have trouble identifying relevant variables and the connection to one another. Number 3, they often avoid making hypotheses. In some cases, they worry that their assumptions will be incorrect and in turn wait to be told what the answer is rather than making an educated guess. Number 4, when presented with research-based data, students tend to ignore, reject, or misinterpret the actual results of the research. Instructional supports that push metacognitive thinking will drive student comprehension. As students become aware of how they think, they are better able to reflect on the topics discussed. As educators, we can help by guiding students by redirecting their train of thought with activities to help how they think when they read. Before reading, have students engage in an activity associated with what they are about to read. These activities should be brief and should last roughly 5 minutes. The purpose of engaging in these activities before diving into readings is to tap into the student's prior knowledge on a given subject. As mentioned earlier, students often avoid making a hypothesis because they fear they will be wrong. As educators, we can help minimize this by having students review key terms and phrases before forming a hypothesis. This activity is referred to as the probable passage strategy, and it enables students to take an educated guess about a text based on key terms and phrases. Anticipation guides serve as a formative assessment and provide teachers with general misconceptions that exist within the class. One way to get a quick idea of where your students are at is by reading through the anticipation guide and polling the students for responses. At the end of the class, you can go back to the anticipation guide and ask students if their opinions have changed. While students engage in a reading, encourage active thinking throughout. You want to select reading activities based on the layout of the text. For example, if you notice that there are a lot of diagrams, pictures, and visuals throughout the reading, you may want to focus on the text features. Conversely, if there is more text, you will want to have students complete a response log entry. The text structure strategy takes a close look at features such as graphs, diagrams, and pictures in a reading. A response log can be used to focus attention on specific phrases and sentences from the text. As students read the phrases and sentences, they may code the phrase or sentence as interesting, confusing, important, or that they want to know more about the topic discussed. Next, they can explain why they chose that specific code. These are some of the main abbreviations that can be used in a response log. Students can mark sections with an exclamation point where they find something they read about to be interesting. They can mark sections with question marks where they have questions. They can include an I to indicate that the portion of the reading is important or goes to the main point of the reading. And they can include a W indicating that they want to know more about that particular portion of the text. After reading, students may be prompted with discussion questions to help them recall information they were reading. These questions should lead students to cite evidence from the text that will support responses that are not opinion-based. As students move to upper elementary grades, they can begin to write their responses in a claim, evidence, reasoning format. This format is commonly abbreviated as a CER response. During this lecture, we reviewed active and passive learning. We emphasized how active learning will increase if metacognitive strategies are put into play before, during, and after reading scientific texts. These strategies, when incorporated into science-based discussion and readings, help students to focus not only on what interests them, but what the text and images are trying to convey.